Hello, Matt.
Hello, Michael.
Welcome to you, who is doing podcast.
Indeed, it is me who does a podcast with you as well, yes?
It happens.
Begin.
Welcome to Hacking the Grepson, a podcast about programming and development and all of those adjacent topics. I am Mike, and I am here with Matt. Both of our names start with M.
I never realized that.
And I'm blowing some minds right now. So apparently Matt... Oh, you know what? I can't believe this. I forgot that I actually have the thing we're going to talk about today.
Gasp.
A rubber duck. And we're going to talk about rubber ducks. What the heck do rubber ducks have to do with programming and development, Matt? Because I am baffled.
Yeah, so I genuinely don't know where I saw this term the other day. I think it was probably Reddit. And someone said something. They were like, it was just like, they said it very casually in the middle of the paragraph. It's like something rubber ducking, blah, 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 blah. And I went, what in the duck is rubber ducking? And I went to Wikipedia because that's still where I go for looking up things. I haven't yet gotten into the habit of asking ChatGPT things.
It will come.
And sure enough, there's this thing called Rubberduck debugging. And in reading about it, I realized I've been doing it my entire life, just not calling it that or using a rubber duck. So I'll read what Wikipedia says about this. In software engineering, rubber duck debugging, or rubberducking, is a method of debugging code by articulating a problem in spoken or written natural language. The name is a reference to a story in the book The Pragmatic Programmer, in which a programmer would carry around a rubber duck and debug their code by forcing themselves to explain it line by line to the duck. And then it goes on to say some other things about other names. But that's basically the important thing. What's interesting, I've read the Pragmatic Programmer. I've read it. I apparently cannot say it. And I don't remember this term from that at all. But it is something I do. Quite often when I'm trying to solve a problem, I will break it down to someone who doesn't know anything about the problem whatsoever. And usually I'll figure it out as I explain it. Do you have any experience doing something like this, Mike?
I mean, I've heard of rubber ducking, a rubber duck debugging. It's funny because I've not read The Pragmatic Programmer, so I didn't get the reference at all. And I've never used a rubber duck to explain things to, but to kind of dovetail into a previous episode we did about dev blogging, I feel maybe that I sometimes use dev blogging nowadays as a form of rubber duck debugging, because I will be working on something and I'll think that I understand it, but I feel like I need to blog about it. Like I need to write it as if someone had never heard about this thing and kind of retell it. And in that process, it kind of like, okay, I guess I do. And sometimes I'll have to go back and revise and stuff. So it's sort of a form of talking to a rubber duck or some kind of, I mean, do you think it's specifically that it's not that it's an inanimate object that you're talking to. It's just that you're being forced to, it's a focal point to get you to explain something to something else.
Yeah. The Wikipedia article says that, it usually is inanimate objects or pets. Teddy bears are apparently very common. Apparently when humans are involved, it is known as confessional programming. I don't like that term. I'm going to stick with rubber ducking. I do this with all sorts of problem solving things, like more than just debugging and programming. I used to call my mom up and talk to her about math problems I was stuck on when I was in college, not because she was particularly good at solving math problems, but because she herself felt like she didn't understand like anything beyond algebra, even though she's an accountant, and clearly does understand things. But because she had that feeling, I could talk to her and try to explain it in a way that I would explain to someone who didn't understand things, and that forced me to break it down into small enough pieces where I would find the flaw in my logic. Usually, it's teaching a bad student, it's dev blogging, it's
yeah, I mean, it's a cute term, which is probably why it's stuck. You know, even if your actual method of doing this is not with a rubber duck. But yeah, I think this is a great way to work out a problem because I think generally, especially in development and programming, you know, the way that you're solving a problem is often just in your head. You're just thinking and just you're you know mulling over different things and trying to figure out a problem in a different medium than just thinking, you know, instead talking or like I said, blogging, writing, you know, it's like it uses a different part of your brain and it forces you to kind of translate it. And by translating it, you go over it more in more detail and you often see things that you miss. I mean, you just did a great version of this before we started the podcast where you were trying to think of the name of an app on your phone and in your head you couldn't think of it. But as soon as you started talking out loud to me, I was the rubber duck, what you were doing, your brain found the word. And like, it's kind of wild that works, but it did.
Yeah. It's nuts, you know. I don't have a mind palace or whatever the people who actually,
memory palace, yes,
whatever those things are called. I don't have one of those.
No palace.
It's all just blank and black up there. I don't see anything, so I can't just walk into a different room and open a chest and be like, oh, you know, parable or whatever word I'm looking for in the moment. But when you were describing it as, you know, like getting your thoughts out through a different medium, I looked to my right at my whiteboard because that, I think, is how I do this most often. I'm not explaining it to anybody, but I'm trying to write it down in concrete blocks, usually, so I can reason about it and see it visually. And trying to see it visually often tells me that I am missing something huge, or that I made an assumption somewhere, and it shows me where the missing pieces are. And I'm like, oh, this is it. I always start with an architectural diagram when I'm going to work on something after I've thought about it for more than a couple of minutes, because that's when it starts to become real. And I think talking about it is as well. And that's when I start to solve problems. Instead, when it's all hypothetical.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, I mean, this is very specific to software engineering, at least as far as what Wikipedia says. But I wonder if, you know, other disciplines have their own form of rubber ducking as kind of a shorthand for doing this. Because, like you said, this is just like a way to work through any problem. Like, this is not a programming issue. This is just I'm trying to figure something out. I need to try it from a different angle, and rubber ducking is just a very cute way to refer to it.
Yeah. Currently on my board, I have architectural drawings of an actual, like, physical dwelling in space that I'm cooking up in my head. And I'm like, oh, this could be kind of a neat way. I have some math that I did because I was trying to optimize something in a video game that I'm playing. And I was like, oh, I got one last hand in Balatro and I need to see if I can win. Is this going to be it? Or do I need to keep trying? Like, do I have any chance? Let me actually write out how that's going to work. And then I have right next to that is me trying to solve a puzzle I saw online somewhere. And then there's also a little bit of code, like software diagram up there. I probably, if I was to look at this a week ago, it would have had a bunch of woodworking diagrams on there. Like, it's whatever I'm thinking about at the time, writing it down, you know, and it's the same thing as rubber ducking. It just, the rubber duck can't show me the picture.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like with the rubber duck, it's kind of putting a lot of emphasis on the talking of it out, like explaining it out loud to something. But I think it's just, that's just one form of it that has the cutesy term. But yeah, you whiteboard, you know, and whiteboarding is just as valid, if not more valid, because it's a good way to work it out. I mean, when we were doing the advent of code, the few times that we've done it now, you know, those are just, you know, it's 25 days of problems that, you could just work it out in code alone in your head. But I realized that trying to explain it on Slack to you and our friends who were doing it was kind of my rubber ducking. It's sort of like, you know, I mean, it's not that you're inanimate. I'm actually looking for you to give feedback, but just in the process of me like, okay, here's the problem. here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, and now I'm at step 6 and I don't know how to get to step 7. Just doing that, I mean, was super useful. I mean, my wife, when she is trying to figure stuff out at work, she often finds that just writing, the physical act of writing, a to-do list or things that she needs to get done during the day is more useful than like a digital to-do list or something, because it's the mode, the modal switch from like thinking and typing to like getting a piece of paper and writing it down.
Yeah.
So this feels like it's more of a form of context switching as problem solving.
Yeah, but I really do think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to like breaking down the problem into like discrete steps, which you have to do in order to put it like make a to-do list. You have to do that if you're breaking it down line by line and talking to a rubber duck. You have to do that to put something on the board. Same reason we have people do this during interviews. We're effectively examining the thought process. In this case, our own thought process. And when you were talking about the advent of code, it made me think about when I used to be in IT and like system administration and like actually going into people's offices and fixing computers and stuff, and how often people would say that just me walking in the room would cause the problems to go away. But what it is I ask a lot of questions because I want to understand the context. And as they're explaining things to me, they would often figure it out. And I'm only realizing this 20-something years later. I'm like, oh, that's my superpower. I'm not really good with computers. I just know how to ask, well, what were you doing? And why? What are you trying to do? Oh, yeah. That step that you think is automatic and assumed, no one does that. Don't do that. That's the problem. You're not supposed to snap the monitor in half when you want to change tabs. That's not how that works.
Step 1, don't break the hardware.
Total tangent. My favorite fix ever in IT was the guy's like, my monitor keeps turning off. I turn it like this, and it'll just turn off. He was unplugging it when he did that every time, and I'm like, what? How do you not realize that?
Well, I think you really you exposed something about software engineering in that, and just computer tech in general, in that it often seems very opaque, especially to people who don't do it. But even to people who do it, it can seem opaque. But really, computers are, you give input and it does a thing and you get output, and you can always break down. I mean, when you're coding, you're literally writing lines of code. Like it's going this line, this line, this line, So to then, like when you're in the middle of like a huge software project with lots of dependencies and libraries and things are jumping around in the code, it's not like basic 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. It's very easy to get lost in there. And so being able to stop and go to the very beginning, okay, what's the first thing I'm doing? And then what does that cause to happen? And what does that cause to happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then, you could have a rubber duck, or you could have Mr. Tomster from Ember.js, because that's what I work on.
I have a friend who in college, I remember like this conversation making me remember this. She was trying to figure out a problem she was having in one of her pieces of software that she was writing for class that had to deal with threads. And like threads are hard because things are happening synchronously, and and it's not all in that linear flow like you were talking about with BASIC. And so she physically got two of her friends to like stand in the lab. I was also in the lab at the time, so I watched this. That's and awesome. Like, all right, you're this thread. Okay, you move forward one. Oh, that's what's going on, right? Like, that's also rubber ducking.
Yeah,
you can do this you can do this a number of ways. This is great.
I will say though that like the traditional rubber duck method of literally having a rubber duck or some kind of little creature, totem, whatever, that's not going to talk back to you necessarily, is I can't see myself actually ever doing that. I can't see myself actually talking to Tomster or a duck or any, or I mean, like, my dog who is older now and will not come up the stairs where I'm currently at. But if I were down there working on something and they came by, like, I don't think I would just start talking to them about this. And I don't know if it's a weird personality anxiety thing of like just talking out loud about something to somebody, but I don't know.
Do you
I don't
talk to
actually see
yourself?
myself doing this. What's that?
Like would you ever talk to yourself, just like think out loud?
I mean, sure, I do, but it's not like it's not like I'm talking right now. You know, it'll be very kind of under my breath ish, maybe.
Oh, no. Okay. I do talk to myself, and it is very much out loud. I'm like,
Okay.
okay, we need to think about how to do this. All right. So if this is here and that is there, right? Because sometimes I just need to I need to be talking. And then talking at something is actually quite helpful because it makes me feel less stupid than talking to myself. I used to talk to my cat all the time because she
Okay.
didn't care.
Yeah.
My dog is too interested in what I have to say and thinks that we're going to play. So I can't talk to her about it.
I mean, whatever works, basically. But I just, yeah, I've never. It's that impulse to talk to anything. Like
Nothing.
I would rather talk to a human being that can give me feedback. I guess that's really what it is. I'd rather chat online with someone. Like I'll ask my coworkers, or I'll ask you or someone else who's a programmer. Or I mean, it sounds lame, but I mean, even I don't really think of it, but it's sort of quasi like what ChatGPT is. You're sort of talking to someone, hey, I need to do this thing. But it's different because you're literally going to them for an answer that you're expecting them to give you, as opposed to just, okay, you're a person that I talk to. So I don't know. Maybe I should try it more often. Maybe I should talk to Tomster. Who knows?
I wonder if some of this is the whole extrovert introvert dynamic thing, right? You're a much more extroverted person than I am. And so that social connection for you probably is much more mentally stimulating and does help you solve problems in a way. And yeah, and with the added bonus of if they actually do know about it, they can give you relevant feedback. Whereas for me, I immediately think I'm going to be bothering someone if I do that. And also, it sounds exhausting to go hunt someone down and bring them up on a call and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'll just figure this out on my own. Right. And neither of those is necessarily the right approach. Some balance is probably the right approach in there.
I mean, I don't really see myself as being like significantly more extroverted in this context than you. It's really more just like my expectation. Like I want to only bring this up to someone who I think will have relevant feedback. Otherwise, I will just kind of stew about it in my head, as opposed to finding my dog and saying, all right, so Penny, here's the deal. This is what's going on. That's just, I've never had that impulse to do that. Even though I see this as valuable and I see versions of it as being useful, but the actual talking to an inanimate or non-verbal responsive entity just doesn't come to my head. I don't know.
I think what the trick is that we need to name our animals or rubber ducks after programmatic concepts so that it kind of brings us into that headspace, and then it'll feel like they're experts.
So I guess Tomster is now Tomster Trier.
Sure.
And Rubber.
Is that how you pronounce that word?
I think. I only know that because I think I dealt with Markov chains or something once, and I learned that term, and I'd never heard of it before, never used it before, haven't used it since.
I learned what Markov chains were like 20-something years ago. Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
not a thing I've ever used.
Isn't that largely what the popular generative AI is, just a superset of or subset
I have no
of?
idea.
It's just like, what's the most predictable thing for me to say back to you? Anyway, so yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I will probably just keep doing what I'm doing and solemnly nod at this tool method that you could use, and like, yeah, that works. It could work.
I find it interesting. I scrolled down a bit on the Wikipedia article, and so the one thing on here that I see that I happen to know about that is definitely not strictly related to programming is the Socratic method, which is my favorite teaching and learning method, and it does involve asking a lot of questions. So I can see that. That distracted me, though, from the point I was actually going to make, which is pair programming is also listed under the C also here. And I don't think of pair programming and this is related at all. Because pair programming, to me, is you are working on a problem and trying to solve it together. And that's different than I am talking to someone and maybe having them solve like a little piece of a problem for me or helping me understand what the problem is so that I can articulate it properly and then solve it. Because a lot of the other things they have on here, I'm like, that is this, learning by teaching and some of these other ones.
I might disagree with you a bit on that, mainly because I I think the difference is that it's again an expectation thing with the inanimate object that you're not expecting to respond or have feedback, because if you did, that would be very strange. Whereas with a pair programming, that generally means another human being that is listening and can talk and will give you feedback, which is kind of not the point of rubber ducking. It's more about, like I said, a focus for you to change the mode of understanding and translate it to a different medium. And that could be another human being, as long as it doesn't turn into that, which I agree with you is an odd way to put it, as confessional programming if a human is involved. It's got a really odd connotation.
Forgive me, manager, for I have syntax errored.
Okay, that was good. All right, I'll give you a little clap for that.
I was glad the sentence ended somewhere good, because I didn't know where it was going to go when I started it.
That could have been going quite a bit different.
But syntax error was kind of perfect. So
yeah, it worked. See, that's where your years of improv ability just came up. You were able to take what was just like a in your head and then, nope, landed it.
Yep. Half the time that doesn't work, but I just trust my brain that it will most of the time, and it usually does.
Well, and see, that is a point in my favor for our previous episode about dev blogging, and you were saying how there's no one wants to hear my words, I don't have anything interesting to say. But that's just a confidence issue. You just have to have the same confidence you have with improv, with blogging, and saying like, no, what I have to say has value, which it does. Everybody's does. I mean, even if nobody reads it, doing it is fine. Even if the duck doesn't respond and doesn't give you a like or a thumbs up, it doesn't mean the act of doing it had no value.
That's a good point.
Wow.
Landed that plane.
I just, bam! That was like a Cessna right in the garage.
Right in the Hudson River.
But I saved the people, so it's okay. I also wanted to, one other thing that they put in here that I thought was neat is that Stack Exchange, Stack Overflow, 1 year for April Fools had Quack Overflow, and they had a little duck in the bottom that you could click on and give your answers to, or your questions, and all it would do was quack at you. That's great. I love that.
I could do that if it just said why. Like if I could build a chatbot smart enough to just ask why in an intelligent way, not just literally the word why, but it could, you say a thing and they're like, why this? You're like, oh, you keep asking me why, that's going to solve my problem 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, question everything. Yeah, I think that's a great place to end it. Unless you had more thoughts.
Quack.
All right. Well, that's this episode of Hacking the Grepson about rubber ducking, or the rubber duck debugging method. Rubber duck debugging. That's fun to say. And if you want to listen to more of our quackery, you can go to hackingthegrepson.com. I did it just for that face.
Quacking the Grepson. No,
Quacking the Grepson, yeah. Maybe an April Fool's episode, Quacking the Grepson. I'm gonna write that down. I'll make a blog about that. You know, I have never blogged about. Have I blogged about Hacking the Grepson? We started that in 2021. I'll cut this out, but I'm just curious. I didn't make a blog post about starting this podcast. That is surprising to me. I'm going to do that. Anyway, yes, if you want to listen to more episodes of Hacking the Grepson, we're at hackingthegrepson.com. We try to put an episode out every other week on Wednesday. And until the next time we quack at you, we now return you to your regularly scheduled quacks already in progress.
Wait.